Got some new technology today, so I'm just checking out. Oh, yeah, looks like we're live. Hello, everyone. Right, let me just have a look. Yay, it's working. Okay, hello if you've joined. I'm just loading up the comments now so I can see you all. So, Day has kindly shared her fantastic technology with me. And we've got a double view today, so I'm super excited. Okay, let me just make this, get myself sorted. Yay, it's working. Okay, right, I need to be able to see. Okay, can she do it? Can she pull it off? I think so. Right. Colleen's in, yes. Morning, Colleen. Thank you for joining us. Is the sound all right? Who else have we got in? Drop me a comment so I know you're here. Hi, Khan. I'm very well, thank you. How are you? Great. Thank you, Colleen. Okay, so you can see, hopefully on the screen, today's recipe. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Bridget. Thank you for letting me know you're here. So, I thought with all, in the UK we're having gorgeous weather, and that is always a cause for celebration, because if you live in the UK, you know we don't always get this. If you don't live in the UK, I'm sure you've heard us moan about the weather. Anyway, we've been blessed with gorgeous sunshine, and the forecast literally looks like it's going to stay like that for the foreseeable forecast for like the next 10 days. So now that we're also allowed out again in the UK, I thought I would show you a couple of picnic recipes. So we had this earlier this week, and I've made it a couple of times this week now actually. So I'm going to show you my Coronation chickpea sandwich, which is, hi Sue, hi Paul, hi Hope. Oh, Khan, that's lovely. He says one of the only good things that came out of this lockdown was the school teaching him different vegan dishes. Well, that is exactly what we aim to do, so I'm very, very pleased to hear that, and I'm sure Day will be too. Yeah, back to picnics. So we're now kind of allowed out into public spaces a little bit more in the UK. So we're going to be trying to eat outside and go for a walk and have a nice lunch outside. So we've been making these sandwiches. So we have a very traditional sandwich in the UK called Coronation chicken, which is basically like a curried mayonnaise. It's a pretty retro recipe. But you can make it completely vegan by using vegan mayonnaise, and then you could use a chicken substitute if you want to use like a meat alternative. I actually never really was into the texture of meat at all, so I use chickpeas, which are really good because they have obviously high in protein, lots of fibre, and they have a lovely like firmness and bite to them. They hold their shape really well, so they work really well in a sandwich. So that's going to be flavoured up nicely with lots of different things to add a bit of texture and different flavour dimensions. And then we're going to put that in a sandwich. But you could also put it on a salad, or you could put it in like a pita, a wrap, or a baguette. We had it in baguettes the other day. It actually does eat slightly better in something that's got like a back to it. I had it as a sandwich, and you have to kind of grip your sandwich quite well to not have chickpeas slightly dropping out. But what I'm going to do today is kind of slightly mash the chickpeas to break them down, help them just like stick together a little bit more in there. So we've got that, and then I've also got a bonus recipe for you, which is a potato salad. But because we're doing a mayonnaise-based sandwich, I didn't want to do another mayonnaise recipe, because some people not that keen on mayo, but also it can be a bit like heavy and rich if you're having lots and lots of dishes with mayo in. So instead of mayo, it's an oil-based potato salad, and in there we've got things that are inspired by a pasta dish. So the pasta dish that I've based this on is puttanesca. if you've ever had puttanesca pasta, actually in some regions in Italy it is vegan. In some places they put anchovies in it, but it's essentially a tomato-based sauce with lots of salty things in it, like olives and capers and sun-dried tomatoes. And in some cases anchovies, but obviously not here. So my potato salad is new potatoes. It's got some lovely crunchy fresh green beans in there, and then all of those lovely salty things, and some lemon juice and oil, a little bit of oil just from the sun-dried tomatoes mixed in there to make a gorgeous, gorgeous, really tasty, but lighter and fresher potato salad than, say, a traditional kind of mayonnaise-based one. So, on with the show. Let me just have a little read and a little chat to you. Hi, Denise. Hi, Vera. Oh, South Africa. I love South Africa. I was lucky enough to go to Cape Town once, and it is still... We went to Cape Town, and then we went up on safari, and it's still my number one holiday that I've ever been on. It's fantastic. Paul's just offered, I think you've offered there, Paul, to give us a brief weather forecast. I'm not sure whether we're going to do that for everyone that's watching, or perhaps everyone can share what the weather forecast is for where they are. Okay, so I'm just going to flip screen so you can see how I'm cooking and what I'm doing. So, hopefully, there's a little bit of a lag, so I'll just give it a sec to switch over. So we're going to start with our potato salad, and we're going to start by boiling our potatoes. I'm just waiting for the screen to switch before I start so that you can see what's going on. Okay, perfect. So now you can see. So I've got a pan of water that's just about simmering here, and I've got some new potatoes here, which I have just cut up into kind of like bite-sized pieces. So we'll just pop those into the water very carefully so we don't splash too much and burn myself. And then I'm just going to grab a lid and pop the lid on there, just to help get those boiling. Okay. Paul says, not me, the presenter. Okay, we're going to have to do some more research pre-show. Khan says it's cloudy in Bangladesh. That's a shame. Okay, fab. Good for you. I'm not going to reveal the secrets of behind the scenes, but you would laugh if you saw where things were positioned right now. I'll just say that. It's all a fun novelty, but it does look good. Okay, I think there's quite a serious lag on here. Can you guys see what's going on? Right, I'm just cutting back to this view for a sec, guys. A little bit of a teething problem. I think my camera up here is frozen. So, let's see if we can get it working again. Oh, it was all going so well, guys. Sorry about this. Let's just try and reconnect. Okay. Hopefully. On the back. Think I fixed it. Just need to get that in the right way around now. Right, oh yes, I think I flipped it back. Oh God, it's all gone Pete Tong up in here. Hopefully you can see now. Anyway, we're going to rotate. Let's just cut back to that one for a minute. Oh dear. Right, okay, it's back. Yes. So the ingredients list is purposefully covering this side of the cooker. We're not going to use that side of the cooker, so don't panic. We're literally, the only cooking today is these potatoes, and then I've got some green beans, which they're going to go in the water towards the end of the cooking time. So, right, now we've got everything back, and you can see everything's good, and you can still hear me. We're going to boil these potatoes for about 10 minutes. So while we do that, we're just going to get on with our chickpeas for our sandwich. So you don't need to make this in a jug, but I'm using my glass bowls and glass jug today so that you guys can see slightly better what's going on in here, because my other plastic bowls are kind of brightly coloured and I don't want to distract too much from that. So in here I've got 1 can of chickpeas which I've just drained and rinsed, so they're nicely dried. And then over here I've got all my little things to add. So we have got some flaked almonds, which you can toast if you like, or you could use chopped almonds. It's up to you. And you could use another nut too if you wanted to. I've got spring onions, so they're going to add a nice bit of like freshness. If you haven't got spring onions or you can't get hold of them, you could use something like shallot, so you've got an oniony flavour coming through, but you don't want anything too strong and pungent. So spring onion is a nice one to use. Then we've got some dried apricots, which are going to add a nice sweetness. So apricots is traditional in this recipe, but if you wanted to use something like raisins or chopped dates, that would also work too. So you could sub for those if you wanted to. And then I've just got some lemon zest here as well, which just adds a little bit of sweetness. And then I'm using medium curry powder. You can pick whichever curry powder you like. So, you know, if you want mild, go mild. Maybe you might need a little bit more mild. If you're using hot, then maybe just pull it back a little bit from the quantities I've suggested. And then the final thing to bind it all together, I've got some vegan mayo here, which I made this morning using the absolute wonder juice that is aquafaba. So I think Dave has already done a recipe on here. It was one of the very first lives, which was for aquafaba mayonnaise. So if you want to learn how to make aquafaba mayonnaise, you can have a little scroll back through and watch that video. It's super, super easy. It might sound complicated to be making your own mayonnaise, but it's way, way cheaper, and you're actually using that aquafaba that might normally go in the bin. So we'll start by just chopping these dried apricots and spring onions. I like to just go kind of half down the middle and then into little cubes. If you've got raisins instead or sultanas, you don't need to chop them, you can just pop them in whole. Okay, and then onto our spring onions. So I've already just peeled off any outer kind of shriveled layers here and pulled off any soft and kind of scraggy bits from the top. So all of that is good to go in now. So because these ones are kind of bulbed at the bottom, I'll cut down to about here, and then this part I'll cut in half before I slice along widthways, just so we get some smaller pieces and not too many kind of big overpowering oniony pieces in there. cooking along live with us today? Let me know in the comments if you are. We're trying to publish the ingredients the day before on Instagram and on the Facebook group, so that if you want to, you can cook along with us live. But obviously the videos will still all be saved, so you can watch back, and we'll still share the written recipes as well, so you can make them at a later date. Okay, so we've got everything chopped, everything ready to go. We've got some mayonnaise here, so I'm going to go for 3 tablespoons of mayonnaise, kind of like not quite heaped tablespoons. And then half a tablespoon of curry powder. Quite low. Okay. So that's that. And then I'll give that a quick mix just to make sure there's no sort of clumps of curry powder that are going to stick to our fruit or inside our onions. So you've got a nicely coated. And I did say at the start, actually, I'm going to give it a little bit of a mash just with the chickpeas in there, just to help it kind of stick together a little bit more. So just with a fork, you just get in. I did find I ended up with a few rogue flying chickpeas when I had a sandwich on, I think it was Tuesday. So we'll give it a bit of a mash here, just to help things stick in that sandwich. But as I said, this works really nicely actually in like a toasted pita or a nice fresh baguette, or a roll. Basically anything, a wrap, any kind of bread vessel you want. Or not, just on a salad. Thank you, Denise. So I do my aquafaba mayo in a food processor. I think Day uses a hand blender, but I don't have a hand blender. But you can use either or. You just need to use a blender or a food processor that you're able to stream the oil in slowly, rather than adding it all at once. So it needs to basically be capable of running and have a kind of spout at the top. Yeah, Justine's going to make this later when she gets in. Perfect. And yeah, definitely give the mayo a try. It is way easier than it seems it's going to be. Okay, so we've got our slightly mashed chickpeas in here. I'm going to add the almonds in, and then everything else that we've got on the board here. And then, crucially, always a bit of salt, and I quite like a lot of a good bit of black pepper in here as well, to give a nice sort of pop of flavour as well. So I think I'm running quite low on black pepper, but let's have a look. I've got a bit of a pinch. Okay, so then just mix that all together. I mean, this is pretty easy stuff, but it's delicious, and I think sometimes food tastes better when you haven't had to go to a huge amount of labour to create it, hey? Okay, so then we can assemble our sandwich. So I have to confess, this isn't homemade bread. I can't say I've ever made a loaf of homemade bread that has been what I would describe as sandwichable. So I do buy my bread for sandwiches, but we do make our own bread sometimes for toast and things like that. So I'm going to start with just some salad leaves. So I've got some just mixed salad leaves here, which have got little pea shoots in, which are quite nice in here because they're sweet, but the salad just adds a nice little freshness. Another thing that's quite nice to add, if you've got them or they're in season, is some nice juicy fresh tomatoes. So you could slice those and add them at this stage on the bottom layer. So that's all done, and then we will just spoon in the chickpea mix. So this mix is going to make at least two big sandwiches, maybe 3 to be honest. So it's a good quantity, and it would be nice alongside other sandwiches as well. So if you wanted to make like a picnic with a few different sandwich fillings, so everyone can kind of mix and match and have a bit of a few different ones for variety, this is a nice way to add something a little bit different to your picnic. So you want to just press it down, so you've got not too many loose bits. And if you want to kind of put some spread or some mayo onto your bread, you can do. I quite like not doing that for this sandwich. Just rinse my hands quickly. Okay. And then, so that's done, basically. That's it, that's finished. So I'll show you the finished thing at the end. I'm just going to put that to one side, and we're going to get back to our potatoes. So let's just have a look clearer. Denise, I believe the aquafaba mayo recipe is on the Community Hub. It's definitely, if you go onto the Vegan Chef School page and have a scroll through the videos, there's a video that is aquafaba, mayonnaise and meringues in one, I think. But we could potentially do another one if you want another one. Okay, perfect. So our potatoes, let's just take the lid off here. And let's give them a little test. So, nice way to check if your potatoes are done. It's just if your knife easily slips into them. Nice sharp knife. For potato salad, I want them to be on the firmer side. So I'm going to drain these off now. No, I'm not. I'm going to add my green beans for about a minute. Okay, so pop those in there. And I'm going to add the lid back actually, just to help steam them. So put the lid firmly on, the beans are in, and they literally only take a minute, maybe two at max. They're quite thin ones, nice fine green beans. You don't have to use the green beans if you don't want to, and you could obviously sub them for a different vegetable. So you could sub them with some peas, some steamed asparagus, something like that if you wanted to, but it's just as good with just the potatoes. You could even actually pop in, at the end, pop in a few handfuls of fresh rocket, and that will give you a nice kind of green, fresh dimension to the salad as well. Okay, so while they are just boiling, let's bring in our other bits and pieces. So, I have got Kalamata olives here. I've got sun-dried tomatoes, and these ones were packed in oil. In the UK, we can buy them dried or packed in oil in jars. So I've used the oil ones here because that's what I had, and actually this oil that's in the jar with the tomatoes has soaked up some of that flavour from the tomatoes. So it's a lovely way to actually use that in your dressing for your potato salad. If you've got just dried sun-dried tomatoes, then just sub the oil for extra virgin olive oil, and just soak your tomatoes in hot water just to rehydrate them before you go. Then here I've got these are actually baby capers. They're super, super tiny, and anyone that knows me well knows that I'm obsessed with anything that's miniature, and I think it might be because I'm quite a small person, and I sort of identify with things like that. So if you've got bigger capers, you can chop those up before you put them in. I'm not going to here because these are tiny anyway. Then I've got lemon juice. The recipe does have lemon zest in it as well, but I only had one lemon and my zest has gone into my Coronation chickpeas. So I made a call, prioritised it over there, and I'm just going to use the juice here today. And then I've got flat leaf parsley, which I've just popped in. You can see a little bit, hopefully. I've popped in a little glass of water just while I'm chatting to you guys, so that it doesn't wilt and go horrible and soft. So, right, you can see now, we look at these beans, they've completely turned lovely dark green colour, and I might want to test them at this point and just see whether they're kind of al dente, but I know sort of from the colour of them and how long they've been in there that they are cooked how I want them. So you do you, really. Test them. If you're happy with them, go for it. If not, you can leave it for a little bit longer. But I'm going to drain these off now. So I've got my colander in the sink. I'm just going to whip these over there. And the nice thing about this potato salad is that you don't have to wait for the potatoes and the beans to cool down before you start dressing it, so you can serve it warm as well. If you were doing that with a standard potato, if you were doing a standard potato salad, you'd need to wait for those potatoes to cool nicely before you add your mayonnaise. Otherwise, you're gonna really melt the mayonnaise down. Okay, Virginia's just asked if I can explain what to do with the sun-dried tomatoes again. Yeah, sure. Okay, so we can buy them here in jars, and in the jars they're packed in oil. So that's what I've used here today. We can also buy them. Let me just see if I've got them in the cupboard. I have. So you can also buy them in packs like this in the UK, and they are fully dried out like that, so they're all shriveled and they look quite matte in colour. So with these ones, you don't need to put any oil with them unless you want to. You just need to soak them in some hot water, so just boil the kettle and pour a bit over. Leave them for about 15 minutes and they will rehydrate and plump up, and then they'll just be easier to eat. And then for this recipe, we've got some oil in the dressing, so you can just sub that for extra virgin olive oil. Okay, so let me just quickly chop up these bits and pieces. It really doesn't matter how you're chopping your sun-dried tomatoes and olives here. I quite like my sun-dried tomatoes in strips. So I just go across them. You can cut them into smaller pieces if you want, but I almost quite like that variance when you're eating this potato salad. It's not just like one homogeneous flavour. Each mouthful is slightly different, because you might get a bit of olive here and a bit of tomato there and a caper every now and then, and that dressing just kind of pulls it all together. Okay, so they go in the bowl, and the capers can go in. And then we've got our olives. So I like to go either in half or in quarters here, so you've got kind of nice pieces like that again don't need to be particularly even. I do buy these olives for this already pitted, just because it's much easier to get nice pieces. But you can use whatever olives you like, really. You can even use green or just plain black. Apparently, buying pitted olives is frowned upon because they keep their flavour better with the pits in. But for this, I'm kind of willing to take that trade-off. So it's 60 grams each of olives and sun-dried tomatoes, and then 30 grams of the capers, just because capers are a bit sharper, so you don't need quite so many. They're also smaller, so they're going to distribute a bit better within the recipe. So I've just left the potatoes and the beans are just in the colander in the bottom of my sink, so they're kind of just air drying a little bit while we do this bit. And then we'll add them and the dressing and toss everything together. Okay, last one. Okay, so to my oil here, this is about 2 or 3 tablespoons of the sun-dried tomato oil. So I'm just going to take my lemon and just squeeze that into it. Just catching any pips. Hands off. George, is there a substitute for the olives? Is that because you don't like olives or you don't have them? You can just use more of the sun-dried tomatoes and capers if you want. I just like the extra bit of fruitiness that olives bring. But this is a real adaptable recipe, and what's nice about it is the olives, capers and sun-dried tomatoes are things that you can have in the cupboard, either dried or in jars, and they last for ages. So they're quite good ingredients that I like to have on hand, particularly at times like this when we're maybe not popping to the shop every other day and we want to stay in a little bit more. They just help you add a real nice pop of flavour to different dishes. George says both, doesn't like them, doesn't have them. Okay, yeah, so just use more sun-dried tomatoes, a few more capers if you want. You could even add something like, we can get marinated artichokes in jars over here. I'm not sure where you are, George, but you could add something like that. So any of your kind of antipasti vegetables that you might find kind of marinated in a nice oil and slightly salty, that's the other thing that they bring to this salad, is like a whack of seasoning. So I'm not going to add any salt here. If this was a salad dressing now, I'd add a pinch of salt and a bit of pepper and whisk that together. It's literally just the sun-dried tomato oil and the juice of the lemon. So let's get our beans and potatoes back. So you can see I've left my skins on my new potatoes because they were small little dainty things. And the skins are very thin, they're also quite nutritious. Whoop. So I keep them on here. If you've got kind of rougher, bigger potatoes, you can still use them here, and by all means you can absolutely leave the skins on if you're happy with them. But if you want to take them off, then you can. Okay, so we're just going to sort of toss this through a little bit. We'll get rid of this board now. So then we can just pick our fresh parsley in. If you're serving it immediately, go for the parsley now. If you want to make it and eat it a bit later, wait for it to cool down before you add your parsley, or even just wait until you serve it to add your parsley, because your softer green herbs like parsley, coriander, don't take well to heat. So here it's fine because I'm going to eat it straight away. So they'll still feel fresh, but if I was to leave this to cool down and serve it later, they'd be quite wilted. Again, you can chop these more finely if you want to, but I quite like to have sort of big pieces because they look pretty and they just add a bit of variety throughout those bites. There we go. Last little bit. And then we'll just take our dressing and just pop that over the top. You want to try and use the biggest bowl you've got here really, because as you'll see, because you've got quite big pieces of the beans and things like that, it can be a bit tricky to toss things neatly. There we go. So this one doesn't have to be a picnic recipe, in all fairness. This can just be a nice little supper with some grilled tofu or grilled tempeh or something like that. Or you could even add lentils to it, to be fair, and it would be a complete balanced meal all in one. So there we go, we've got our potato salad there. And we've got our chickpea sandwich here. So I'm just going to flip back to Nikki Cam rather than Nikki Hands Cam. And I'm back. So I'll just show you side on view. Got a lovely sandwich, which you can cut in half, which is probably easier to cut in half, but eat cut in half actually. And then we've got our gorgeous puttanesca potato salad. So there we are. Let's see, have we got any more questions? Day says picnic, anyone? If anyone wants to just pop to London and join me outside, that's legit here now. So we could go and have a picnic outside my flat if you wanted to. Sue says no parsley, any other options, or just leave it out. You could throw some basil in there if you have basil, or fresh oregano. Maybe a bit of rosemary, but not as much because it's quite pungent. Thyme, even whatever you like, really. I probably wouldn't go coriander because it's kind of at odds with the other flavours, and it's a much stronger flavour in its own right. So the parsley is quite a nice, soft, gentle herb, and basil is like more kind of flavoursome, but has the same kind of vibe as your sun-dried tomatoes, capers and olives, and it kind of fits there. So I'd go for that. Basil, oregano, maybe rosemary. They all work with your Italian flavours there. There is a rainbow, guys. I'm sorry about this. It's here. It's been off screen. It's just there in the corner. I did realise at the start that I'd blocked it off. And I thought, if I move now, you're all going to suss me out. I'm too obvious sometimes. I do look at it and then realise that I've given the game away. Oh, Jenny says you need a Panasonic bread maker, perfect bread anytime. Oh, well, I mean, that would be great. I'm running out of space, to be honest, in the kitchen for gadgets. But one day, when I've got my big country house and my kitchen with an island, maybe we'll go for that. Okay, Day says she'll bring the Prosecco. Perfect. I'm outside waiting, ready when you are. Right, any more questions? Throw them out there. If not, then I hope you'll have a wonderful day. I hope if the weather's nice enough, you'll feel inspired to go and have a picnic, or even just take your dinner into the garden or the balcony, or sit outside on the step, wherever you can. Get a bit of time outside. Day will be back tomorrow with another recipe at 12 o'clock UK time. And I will see you again next Friday. So thank you for joining. Have a lovely, lovely day, and we'll see you soon.